He possessed a certain allure, but his silence was a fortress. Julian Croft, heir to a fortune built on steel and steam, wondered if his own reputation was not enough to impress this boy from the Velvet Quill. He felt the sting of being ignored, a sensation so foreign it was almost a novelty. He sat among his associates, the air thick with cigar smoke and the scent of expensive bourbon, his suit a masterpiece of dark, tailored wool. His features, usually set in a lazy, aristocratic confidence, were now sharp with irritation. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, the crystal cool against his skin, a coiled tension in his grip. With a flick of his wrist, the glass shattered against the marble floor just inches from the silent figure at the grand piano. The pianist's eyelashes fluttered. The discipline drilled into him at the club made him kneel instinctively on the plush carpet. Julian's voice was a low growl, remarking on the boy's supposed courage, dripping with a sarcasm that made the others at the table chuckle nervously. He commented that nowhere in the 5 boroughs could one find a soul with more nerve. Leo's quiet submission seemed only to fuel Julian's annoyance. He rose, and a swift kick sent the boy sprawling. A sharp agony bloomed in Leo's chest, and he gasped for air, remaining on the floor for a long moment. Grace, a waitress with kind eyes who often lingered to hear him play, saw the situation escalating and rushed forward. She placed herself between them, her hand tentatively on Julian's sleeve, her words a frantic plea. She begged Mr. Croft to calm his anger, explaining that it was not defiance that kept Leo silent. She told him of an old sickness, a malady of the throat that had stolen his ability to speak. She appealed to Julian's mercy, hoping he might see a person worthy of pity. Grace pulled at Leo's sleeve, helping him to his knees and pressing his head down in a bow of supplication. Julian considered this, his gaze falling upon the boy. He asked if it was true. Leo nodded, his eyes wide with a practiced terror. A flush of crimson stained his eyelids and the corners of his eyes. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and against his pale skin, only his lips and the delicate skin at the edge of his eyes held any color. As Julian reached a hand toward him, a few tears escaped, tracing clean paths down his cheeks. A flicker of something predatory and fascinated lit Julian's eyes. He mused aloud that he had never dallied with a mute before. Tonight, he declared, would serve as the boy's apology. He seized Leo's arm, pulling him from the floor and toward a velvet-draped settee in the corner of the private room. Grace made a move to intervene, but a single look from Julian froze her in place. He asked if she dared to stand in his way. Her laugh was a nervous tremor as she assured him she would not. He ordered her out. Her eyes met Leo's for a moment, filled with a helpless concern. Leo offered her a faint, strained smile. A body shared by 1,000 arms, lips tasted by 1,000 mouths. From the moment he had been sold to the Velvet Quill, he knew this day would come. It was only a matter of when. But understanding offered no comfort. When the fine fabric of his shirt was torn, the tears finally fell. Before he was 10, his father had been a professor at a small New England college. He named him Leo, hoping he would always remember the love of his parents and the value of his education. His father used to say he had a sharp mind, that he was destined for greatness, perhaps a seat in the Senate. His mother would laugh, her eyes crinkling at the corners, and tease that if her son became a senator, the daughters of the city's finest families would surely come to blows over him. The memory was of a quiet house, the scent of old paper and leather-bound books. He would be at his desk, and through the open window, he could hear the murmur of his father lecturing students on the campus lawn. His mother would be on the porch swing, shaded by a sprawling maple, a needle and thread in her hand, mending a tear in his trousers. The spring air was gentle, the light golden. It had all seemed so ordinary. Then, his father was accused of hiding anarchist texts. The arrest, the seizure of their home, it all happened in an instant. His father refused to confess to a crime he did not commit and was beaten severely in custody. His mother, desperate to appeal his case, collapsed on the steps of the courthouse, her heart giving out from the strain. Before she died, her hand, cold and frail, clutched his. She told him he had to live, that he had to survive no matter what. Her hand was cool, but her blood, from where she'd scraped her knuckles on the stone, was warm. It stuck to his skin, a stain that seemed to burn long after it was washed away. With the charges made public, his father was ruined, dying of pneumonia in a squalid prison cell. Leo, orphaned and alone, was passed through a series of grim institutions before being taken in by the Hale family. Seeing his literacy and quiet intelligence, they made him a companion for their son, Asher. The young Asher Hale was bright and refined, the very picture of the gentleman his father had always described. Seeing Leo's perpetual sadness, he once told him, with all the earnestness of youth, to just wait. He swore that once he graduated from law school, he would help clear his father's name. The boy's passionate sincerity melted some of the ice around Leo's heart. He settled into the Hale household, dedicating himself to Asher. He saw to Asher's studies more diligently than his tutors, to his well-being more carefully than his own mother. He placed all his hopes on him. Asher, in turn, worked harder, driven by the desire to right the wrongs done to Leo's family. Until the year Asher turned 17, and he was introduced to the city's debauched gentlemen's clubs. Everything changed. The way he looked at Leo was different. The simple sympathy was gone, replaced by something else. A hunger. There was no longer a distinction between the way he looked at Leo and the way he looked at the painted women in those establishments. One evening, as Leo prepared the ink for Asher's calligraphy practice, Asher's gaze lingered on his pale, slender fingers. He swallowed hard and suddenly grabbed his wrist. He remarked that Leo had grown up, that even his hands were enticing. Leo tried to pull away, his heart hammering, but Asher pulled him into his lap. He told him not to be afraid, that he only wanted to take care of him, to touch him. Leo resisted, struggling to escape. He looked up to Asher, respected him, saw him as his entire future. He didn't understand the complexities of desire, but he sensed that if a certain line was crossed, there would be no going back. Asher clutched his shirt, his eyes bloodshot and terrifying. Seeing Leo's continued resistance, he called his name, his voice a low command that rooted Leo to the spot. Asher's handsome face was twisted by lust, making him seem like a monster poised to devour him. He warned him to stop struggling if he wanted to remain in his favor. He reminded him that once he was a powerful man, he couldn't help clear Leo's father's name if Leo wasn't good to him. His voice dropped to a coaxing whisper, promising he had learned from the best, that it wouldn't hurt. "My Leo, my good Leo." Leo's face was ashen as Asher lifted him, his body trembling. It felt as though a fishbone was lodged in his throat, choking any sound. Asher carried him to the bed and pushed him down without a shred of tenderness. There was only pain, blood, and the distorted, flushed face of his tormentor looming over him. He made no sound. Perhaps he tried, but it didn't matter. The victim cannot save himself, and the aggressor does not listen. A servant passing in the hall hurried their steps. Only the violated is left alone with their shame. The powerless are rendered mute. In that moment, he understood that the brilliant, noble young man he had admired was just another demon controlled by his appetites. Any affection he'd felt was severed as if by a knife. Asher held him from behind, his ragged breaths hot and damp against his neck. He whispered how smooth his skin was, smoother than the finest silk. A body like porcelain, he murmured, more beautiful than any woman's. He said that if Leo were a woman, he would have made him his mistress, kept him in luxury for the rest of his days. Even if it was just a lie, even if the premise was an impossibility, the best he offered was the status of a kept woman. Before, he was the favored companion. Now, he was the subject of sneers and whispers from the staff. They called him a degenerate, a backstairs whore. The maids who once treated him with kindness now averted their eyes in disgust. The house felt as cold as a tomb. He was summoned by Asher's parents. The maid who fetched him walked quickly, as if to distance herself from something unclean. They had all decided he was a shameless seducer who had corrupted their son. He entered the study. Without a single question, Mr. Hale ordered the household security to give him 20 lashes with a belt. He was held down on the floor, his body racked with pain, the men pinning him looking at him with utter contempt. Mr. Hale shouted that he was a disgrace, asking how the son of a professor could be so depraved. Leo lifted his head, his mouth open to protest, but then Mrs. Hale spoke. She called him a mere plaything. She advised her husband to let their son keep him for a while, suggesting he was just a novelty who would soon be discarded. Once Asher grew bored, they could sell the filthy thing off and be rid of the stain on their home. She glanced at him, her brow furrowed in distaste. She warned him that his fate was tied to Asher's academic success. He was dragged back to his room like a carcass. When Asher returned that night, reeking of liquor from some sordid club, Leo was feverish. Asher, aroused and unsteady, pushed him onto the bed, his alcohol-scented mouth pressing against his burning face. It was only when he tore away the tattered remnants of Leo's shirt that he saw the truth. Leo's pale skin was a horrifying canvas of welts and bruises, crisscrossed with split, bleeding flesh. He froze. "Leo," he whispered, "you're back." Silent tears streamed from the corners of Leo's eyes. He was useless. He couldn't save his father, couldn't stop his mother from dying. Now, a man forced and shamed, he couldn't even defend his father's honor from insults. What was the point of living? But Asher, unwilling to let him go, called for a doctor that very night, saving his wretched life. Looking back, he often thought it would have been better to have died then. In the Hale mansion, he existed as a ghost. Asher desired him, his body, his face, the pliant obedience he could command. But he did not love him, and Leo no longer dared to let him. All he had left was himself. Years of study culminated in Asher's entrance to law school in the capital. Other students brought money and servants. Asher brought Leo. Under the gaslight, Asher's gaze roamed possessively over his bare back, a wolfish hunger in his eyes. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Leo responded to him with a desperate heat of his own. It drove Asher wild. He promised that once he was an established lawyer, Leo would be his clerk, managing his affairs by day and his bed by night. Leo, dizzy from the motion, clung to the sheets and asked in a trembling voice if he would still want him then, if he would remember his promise. Asher's violent thrusts were the only answer, pulling him back from any thought of escape. He promised he would always cherish him. But a man's words are not to be trusted, especially those spoken in bed. Asher would break his vow in the most brutal way imaginable. Leo awoke with a start, a phantom ache spreading through his body. He glanced down at his own skin, clear and unblemished now, but dotted with the faint marks of another man's passion from the night before. He sat up, a bitter smile touching his lips. It was just a dream, a memory from long ago. Now a different man slept in his bed. His patron. It had been 6 months since he arrived at the Velvet Quill. The rain had been relentless that day. 2 of the Hale's men had dragged him inside. Then Asher had emerged from a carriage, holding a black umbrella, his figure slim and upright in a fine wool coat. He looked as elegant as ever, but it was a facade. He had personally forced the caustic liquid down Leo's throat, a concoction that burned and scarred his vocal cords. He had told him that his voice was beautiful, but from now on, only he would have the memory of hearing it. Leo had clung to his trousers, pleading silently. Asher stood over him, the light from the open doorway casting him in a long, dark shadow. After a long moment, a flicker of regret in his eyes was quickly extinguished by a cold resolve. He said it couldn't be helped. Leo's past couldn't be changed, nor could the 3 years they had spent together. He gently brushed his fingers over Leo's brow before grabbing a fistful of his hair, yanking his head back. He told him that a senator's daughter, a young debutante, had shown interest in him. The senator was a powerful man in Washington, a man who could make or break Asher's entire career. He had to marry her, have children, and transform himself from a merchant's son into a man of influence. Leo stared up at him, the last spark of hope in his eyes dying. The compassionate young man who had wept at his story had finally rotted away, replaced by an adult consumed by ambition. Asher confessed that he truly had cared for him, that he'd rushed home every night just to be with him. But a man's ambition, he explained, was not limited to love. He had to claw his way to the top, and now he needed to erase certain inconvenient parts of his past. His fingers clamped around Leo's jaw, forcing his mouth open. The bitter medicine poured down his throat, a searing poison. He told him that after today, he could never speak of their past. He'd considered killing him, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. A body for 1,000 men, lips for 1,000 more, that would be his life from now on. He told him not to blame him, but to blame his low birth and the fact that he was a man. Leo lay crumpled on the floor, clutching his burning throat as blood trickled from his lips. Asher simply watched, his expression as cold and hard as ice. He'd thought about having his fingers broken too, he added, but decided that Leo would need some way to earn a living. It was, he said, his final act of mercy. That night, Asher personally delivered him to the velvet quill. The official story was that a household servant had tried to seduce him, and as an honorable man, he could not tolerate such depravity. The proprietor nodded along, and after Asher left, he stripped the half-dead Leo to inspect him. His eyes lingered on the purplish marks of passion, and he sneered, remarking on the hypocrisy of men who pretended to be saints while secretly indulging their vices. Normally, a used boy would be put to work in the downstairs bar, serving rough clientele. But seeing that Leo still had his looks, and noting the fine calluses on his fingertips from years of playing the piano, he decided he might be trainable. Naked and in agony, Leo felt like a pig on a butcher's block, being appraised for sale. Life in the club was a fresh hell. He tried to escape several times and was nearly crippled for his efforts. The proprietor reminded him that his contract was ironclad. There was nowhere to run. The other boys and girls of the club watched his suffering with detached amusement, their own hardships having hardened them to the plight of others. He was starved for days until he was on the verge of death. Grace would sneak him scraps of bread through the bars of his small room's window. She told him that everyone there had a tragic story, but he was still young. As long as he was alive, there was hope. He looked at her, his gaze vacant. She nodded encouragingly. She was right. Death was an end to problems, but not a solution. Living might be a torment, but it was the only way he might one day see his father's name cleared. He took the bread. He accepted his fate. He learned to play the piano again, his fingers finding solace in the keys. He learned the art of flirtation from the masters of the craft, how to please a patron, how to be a desirable commodity. The club hosted a bi-monthly showcase where a diamond was chosen for the night. It was an auction for a performer's exclusive company. Defying the proprietor's instructions to wear something sheer and revealing, Leo chose a simple, elegant black suit. With Grace's help, he found a pristine white tie to wear with it. Amid the gaudy silks and satins, he was an island of stark, cool refinement. His fingers did not play a gentle lover's tune, but a stormy, violent sonata that filled the hall with the sound of thunder and cannon fire. The room fell silent. In a private booth on the second floor, Asher Hale shot to his feet, a glass of brandy halfway to his lips, his eyes wide with shock. A colleague, a newly elected assemblyman, laughed, remarking that he'd never seen the usually composed Asher so affected by a simple performance. He commented that the boy was handsome and talented, and wondered which wealthy patron would win him for the night. Asher's brow furrowed. The assemblyman, missing the source of his friend's distress, nudged him, suggesting he place a bid. He joked that if he didn't win, the money would be returned. Another man at the table reminded them that Asher was recently married to Senator Dunham's daughter and shouldn't be dallying in such places. Asher wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on the figure at the piano. He had known, logically, that Leo wouldn't remain untouched at a place like this, but seeing other men look at him with raw desire felt like a hot poker to the heart. He had to have him. He had to protect what was his. He had abandoned Leo to climb the ladder of power, forcing himself to act the part of the devoted husband to the senator's daughter. Now that his position was secure, his ambition had evolved. He wanted power and he wanted Leo. In a move that stunned his companions, he summoned the proprietor's assistant. He declared that he was buying the pianist for the night. No, not just the night. He was buying his contract, effective immediately. The assistant stammered, his face paling, and explained that it was impossible. The gentleman's contract, he said, had just been bought out entirely. Not 10 minutes ago. He was already being escorted out by Mr. Croft's men. Asher felt the world tilt. A surge of white-hot rage rose in his chest, and he staggered, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Bought. Someone else had bought him. The carriage rattled over the cobblestones. Leo sat inside, dressed in the same black suit, the case for his sheet music resting on his lap. Outside, Julian Croft rode a magnificent black stallion, a broad, ridiculous red ribbon pinned to his lapel as if it were his wedding day. He waved grandly to passers-by while his valet tossed coins to the street urchins. An acquaintance called out, praising Julian for his legendary panache, for making such a public spectacle of acquiring a new male companion. Such affairs were typically kept quiet, especially among the city's elite. But Julian had always courted scandal. He grinned and tipped an imaginary hat, shouting back that while lovely courtesans were common, a true artist was a rare prize. He invited them all to his city apartment for a formal introduction to his new associate. His brazenness left the onlookers speechless. That young Croft had truly lost his mind this time. His father, the old tycoon, would surely disown him. They speculated on what made this particular boy so special. Leo listened to the crude comments from within the carriage, a sense of dread settling over him. The future seemed a bleak, lightless tunnel. As they were about to turn onto a quieter street, he heard his name being called. He lifted the corner of the curtain and looked back. Asher was running, his hair undone, his expensive suit rumpled. He saw Leo looking, and a desperate hope lit his face. Leo held his gaze for a beat, then let the curtain fall. Julian trotted his horse closer to the carriage window. He asked, his voice flat, if that was a former client. Leo took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, a former client. Some encounters in life are a gift, others are a lesson. Asher Hale was a lesson of the harshest kind. Seeing the nod, Julian let out a short, contemptuous laugh. He remarked that the man had the look of a weasel. Julian didn't take him to the family mansion on Fifth Avenue but to a well-appointed apartment in a quiet part of the city. He left him there without so much as a guard, seemingly unconcerned that he might flee. But Leo didn't run. Where would he go? He was homeless, adrift, with no one to rely on. The one person he had trusted to help clear his father's name was now his greatest enemy. He was on his own. He sank onto a plush sofa, the years he'd spent helping Asher study coming back to him. If he couldn't rely on others, he would have to rely on himself. An audacious thought took root. What if he went to law school himself? His hands clenched. An ex-performer from a gentleman's club, a man with a fabricated, sordid past, could never be admitted. But Julian Croft had bought his contract. The papers were in his possession. If Julian could be persuaded to restore his legal identity, to make him a citizen in good standing, it might be possible. But Asher would never allow it. And there was no guarantee he would even succeed. The largest obstacle remained. Would Julian Croft ever agree to set him free? He gritted his teeth, recalling the night of the showcase, the way the man had nearly killed him for his silence, the crude possessiveness of his words. But a libertine had his uses. His situation could hardly get worse. He prepared for a campaign of seduction. He acquired fine silks and scented oils. He had a decadent meal catered from the city's best French restaurant and chilled a bottle of champagne. He sent a note to Julian inviting him. He came, but not until after midnight, carried in by 3 of his men, drunk and bleeding. Leo's plans dissolved into a flurry of activity as he helped the servants get him cleaned and settled into bed. He hoped that, by showing diligence and care, he might win some small affection. Julian lay face down on the bed, his eyes bleary as he took in the untouched dinner. He chuckled, his voice thick, and slurred that his new companion was certainly a domestic sort. He lamented that while the spirit was willing, the flesh was currently weak, and he would have to ask for a rain check. Leo said nothing, but his face flushed as he dipped a cloth in a bowl of warm water and began to clean the wounds on Julian's back. Julian flinched. "Leo, you—" He turned his head to glare, but the sight of the boy's pale, concerned face stopped him. Leo's eyes were downcast, focused entirely on his injuries, his expression one of pure, unadulterated sympathy. His touch was gentle, careful. A tear welled and fell. The angry words died in Julian's throat. He fell silent, turning his head away and relaxing back onto the mattress. After a long moment he spoke, his voice quiet. He explained that his father had done it. He said the old man had been hitting him for years, that he knew his limits. He wouldn't kill him. It was said as if to comfort Leo, or perhaps himself. After his mother died, his father had never smiled at him again. He recalled one day being beaten 4 times. It was a miracle, he mused, that his father hadn't killed him by now. He spoke of it calmly, as if telling someone else's story. But the overlapping scars on his back told the true tale. The cool touch of Leo's fingers on a particularly nasty welt made him twitch. He told him not to cry. Then, with a self-deprecating laugh, he added that it was nice to have someone to cry for him again. It had been a long time. Leo looked at the stubborn set of his head, the coarse, dark hair. He was clearly a man of immense pride. Suddenly, despite their vastly different stations, Leo saw a reflection of his own past suffering. His fingers moved from the wounds to an unblemished patch of skin on Julian's lower back. He slowly, carefully traced a single letter, P. The body beneath his hand went rigid. Julian's shoulders trembled slightly. A long time passed before a hoarse voice answered him. Yes. After that night, Julian gave him a thick envelope of cash. He told Leo that whatever his motives had been, whatever his past held, he was with him now. He was willing to try and make a life together. He just asked him not to disappoint him. Leo looked at him for a moment, then took the money and, with a businesslike efficiency that made Julian laugh, began to count it. That night, Leo took the money and went straight back to the Velvet Quill. The proprietor's voice boomed through the main hall. He asked what Leo meant, buying out Grace's contract. All eyes turned to him. Leo nodded again. The proprietor was incredulous. He reminded him that Mr. Croft had paid a fortune for him, that this girl, Grace, had gotten herself beaten by Julian's men for defending him. He asked how he could be so ungrateful, throwing that generosity away on someone else. Leo's eyes widened slightly as he processed the new information. From Grace herself, he learned what had happened after Julian had taken him home that first night. Julian, for all his wildness, was still a Croft. A man's dalliances could be excused as youthful indiscretions. But this time, Julian had made it a public affair, parading a male companion through the streets and calling him his bride. Any chance of a respectable marriage was now gone. No prominent family would marry their daughter to him. So when Julian had returned to the Croft mansion, his father had been waiting. The old man's roar had shaken the house. He demanded to know how Julian dared show his face after disgracing the family name. Julian, glancing at his stepmother hovering nearby, had retorted that there was no family honor left for him to disgrace. The affair between his father and his late mother's sister, the current Mrs. Croft, had taken care of that long ago. The argument had escalated until the old man had taken a cane to him. The servants said the cane broke before Julian's will did. Grace smiled at him now. She told him he was a lucky man. Leo looked down, not answering. While Grace packed her things, Leo sat on a balcony overlooking the main hall. He glanced down and his blood ran cold. There, looking up at him, was Asher Hale. Asher's face lit up, and he was at his side in a few bounds, his voice trembling as he said Leo's name. He looked at Leo, expecting tears, recriminations, perhaps a declaration of undying love that would forgive everything. But Leo felt nothing. He looked at Asher as if he were a complete stranger. Asher's expression soured. He grabbed Leo's shoulders, his tone a mixture of threat and condescension. He asked if Leo truly believed he was unique in his betrayal, claiming any man would choose power over a useless dalliance. He sneered that Julian Croft was no different. He pointed out that Leo was a man, that he could offer Julian no heirs, no political advantage. The Croft family would never tolerate him. He reminded Leo of their years together, asking if a few days with Julian could possibly mean more. He insisted that only he truly cared for him, that he could forgive his time in this place. He told him to come back, and they could pretend none of it had ever happened. To blame his own depravity on the nature of all men, to condescend and insult, and then to offer a merciful return to servitude. Asher had somehow become even more disgusting. Leo was about to shove him away when a blur of motion caught his eye. Asher was sent flying over the balcony railing, crashing onto a table in the hall below amid a shower of splintered wood and broken glass. Julian's voice, lazy and menacing, drifted down from the top of the stairs. He asked what kind of vermin dared to poach on his territory. He then turned his cold eyes on Leo. He said he'd just told him that morning he wanted to build a life together, and by nightfall he was back at this den. He'd been told, but hadn't wanted to believe it. He asked if Leo was trying to make a fool of him. Leo, unafraid, simply raised a hand and made a series of gestures. Julian watched, his brow furrowed in impatience. Grace, who had come to see what the commotion was, understood him better. She quietly translated. Leo says, "The way you threw him over the railing was magnificent." Julian grunted, but the corner of his mouth twitched upward. He said Leo had good taste. His gaze fell on Grace's packed bag, then on the envelope of money Leo placed on the table. The club's assistant scurried forward to collect it, flinching away from Julian. Julian said nothing. Leo stepped forward and slipped his hand into his. He squeezed. After a moment, Julian sighed, a look of weary resignation on his face, and laced their fingers together. He led him toward the exit. As they passed the spot where Asher was being helped to his feet, Julian paused. He looked down at the disheveled man. He warned him that if he ever bothered his companion again, he would pay a personal visit to Senator Dunham and break his legs in front of him. Asher paled, gritting his teeth in silent fury. Leo pulled his hand from Julian's and made a gesture toward Asher, a small, specific motion they had used as boys. It had been their secret sign, meaning "wait for me." Asher's eyes widened, a flicker of hope rekindling within them. Then Leo turned, took Julian's hand again, and walked away. The message was now different. "Wait for me, Asher Hale. I am coming to destroy you." Grace opened a small diner not far away, the front a cozy eatery, the back her living quarters. The day it opened, she wept, telling Leo how her parents had starved during a famine rather than sell her. They had dreamed of opening just such a place. An epidemic took them and she was sold anyway. Leo couldn't offer words of comfort, so he simply ate the bowl of stew she served him, his own silent tears mingling with the broth. Julian seemed to settle down. He stopped his nightly carousing, spending most of his time at the apartment, often complaining of boredom. Leo, sighing internally, would hand him one of the history or military strategy books he'd bought for his own studies. Julian would grumble about the dense text, but under Leo's steady gaze, he would always relent and read. A quiet peace settled over them for more than half a year. One day, Grace found him studying. She asked him what his plans were. Leo took out a small silver-cased notebook and a matching pen, a gift from Julian, who had tired of the slow process of gesture and charades. On the paper, he wrote, "I want to go to law school." Grace's hand covered his. She gently reminded him that a man's affection was a fickle thing. She knew he wanted justice for his father, but she warned him that the path he was choosing was dangerous, that not even Julian's influence might be enough to protect him. She urged him to accept the good life he had found. Leo understood her concern, but he had to try. He wanted to clear the name himself. He wanted to deliver the vengeance himself. Asher had taught him that you could rely on no one but yourself. He wrote the words down for Julian to see. "Can you grant me my freedom?" Julian's initial shock curdled into anger. He demanded to know if he hadn't been good enough, if he hadn't overlooked his muteness. He told him there was no escape. Leo's heart sank. He had been naive. That night, he used every art of seduction he had learned. He met Julian's wolfish hunger with his own, pushing him to the brink. In the aftermath, Julian held him, his teeth grazing his neck as he staked his claim. He told him not to think seduction would win him his freedom. He had bought him, and Leo was his for life, his name to be carved next to Julian's on his tombstone. Escape was a dream. Leo closed his eyes in disappointment. Then war broke out in the West. Julian's father was a general in the army and was being called to lead the campaign. Before he left, Julian went to the Croft mansion. He returned bruised and silent for 3 days. On the 4th day, he handed Leo a thick stack of banknotes and 2 documents. One was an official certificate of identity from the county clerk. The other was his indenture contract, stamped void. Julian sat on the edge of the desk, staring out the window at the setting sun. He confessed that on his last visit, his father had seemed old, his blows lacking their former strength. He said that for all his faults, for all the pain he had caused, he was still his father, and Julian couldn't abandon him. He had to go with him. He had to give up this quiet life. Leo clutched the papers, his dream now a reality, but his heart felt hollow. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He wrote 4 words in his notebook: "Godspeed and safe return." Julian read them over and over, then finally smiled. He admitted he hadn't wanted to let him go, but now he had no choice. Leo forced a smile back. As long as they were both alive, he thought, their paths might cross again. Julian was gone for a year and a half. There were no letters. Grace told him that Julian was a good man, that before Leo, he used to come to the club every night but only ever drank alone. She said the rumors of his wildness were an act, a rebellion for his father's benefit, spread by his ambitious stepmother. After all, she pointed out, the stories had started when Julian was only 12 or 13. What trouble could he have been then? Leo froze. A year and a half ago, Julian had only been 18. The thought unsettled him so much he couldn't focus on his books. His vision blurred. He glared at the empty doorway as if to scold it, then rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, a man was standing there. Older, leaner, covered in the dust of a long journey. Julian. He was back. His coat was draped with a band of white mourning silk. Leo's heart seized. He rushed forward, and Julian caught him in a brutal, crushing hug. Hot tears soaked his collar. He could only pat the man's back in silent comfort. The war in the West had been brutal. Julian's father had been killed in an ambush. Julian, leading another detachment, had not learned of his death until 3 days after the victory. He had brought his father's body home himself. With Julian's younger half-brother still a boy, the weight of the Croft Empire now rested entirely on his shoulders. Later, Julian held him from behind, his chin resting on Leo's shoulder. He told him that his father, for the first time, had been proud of him on the battlefield. He had called him a true Croft. The old man hadn't been a good father, Julian whispered, his voice trembling, but he had been a great general. The family's board of directors was pressuring him to marry, to produce an heir. But he told Leo that all he wanted was a quiet life with him. But he left again. The situation at the border remained unstable, and Julian had to assume his father's command. He left a note. "Don't wait for me. Live your life." He was just like his father, saying the opposite of what he meant. For the first time, Leo sent him a letter. For words. "I'll be waiting home." He enrolled in law school. It took him years, starting at the bottom alongside boys a decade younger. He excelled. He passed the bar exam with the highest honors in the state. He was on his way to becoming a state's attorney. The day the news was published, Grace was more excited than he was. Asher Hale also received the news. The next morning, he was at Leo's door. He congratulated him, his eyes glittering with a strange, manic light. He leaned in close, whispering that Leo's past at the Velvet Quill and Julian Croft's grand spectacle of acquiring him was common knowledge. He said the city's powerful men would never allow a former male prostitute to hold public office. His dream was over. He offered him a position as his household manager. Leo kicked him out and slammed the door. But Asher's final words echoed in his mind. "Do you really think Julian Croft is coming back for you? He's never coming back." The smear campaign began. Newspapers printed vicious stories and caricatures. Children in the street sang cruel rhymes about him. Grace would chase them off with a rolling pin. They were harassed, their addresses published. Asher Hale thought public shame would destroy him. But he had forgotten. Leo had already walked out of the abyss. He would not be sent back. Grace watched him, tears in her eyes, as he wrote in his notebook the words she had once told him. "As long as you are alive, there is always hope." The final hearing for his appointment was 3 days away. The public outcry was at its peak. Leo spent his time tending his small window garden and reading poetry. The night before, he wrote a letter to Julian. He thanked him for saving him, for his kindness, for everything. He sealed it and gave it to Grace to mail. He knew this was a gamble. If the review board was merciful, he would survive. If not, his career would be over. At the hearing, the hall was packed. The accusations were relentless, a barrage of insults about his past, his character, his unsuitability. He was asked why he dared to seek office, knowing his own filth. The head of the board finally declared that his appointment was revoked, his law license suspended. He asked if Leo accepted the judgment. He was given a pen and paper. He wrote, "For my past, I accept the consequences." The chairman read the paper, a flicker of a smile on his face. He was about to speak when an aide rushed in, announcing a telegram. A great victory in the West. General Julian Croft was returning to the city. The chairman announced they would reconvene. Leo's gaze was fixed on the doors. He saw him before anyone else, a figure in a dusty uniform, moving with a new, hardened authority. In the crowded hall, the only sound Leo could hear was the jingle of Julian's spurs. The hearing resumed a week later. The chairman, now fully aware of Julian's new status as a war hero and head of one of the country's most powerful families, asked him what he desired as a reward for his service. Julian looked directly at Leo. Then he turned to the board. He said he wanted fairness. He argued that the law should be blind to a man's past, to his station, to his personal life. It was meant to select the most capable, not the most pedigreed. He said he would trade any medal or honor for a fair hearing for Leo today. The old guard protested, but the tide had turned. The chairman asked Leo one final question. If he could work in any department, which would he choose? Leo wrote a single word: justice. The chairman smiled. He was appointed assistant district attorney for the city of New York. 3 years later, as head of the anti-corruption task force, He brought down the entire political machine run by Senator Dunham. The star witness, granted immunity for his testimony, was a disgraced and broken Asher Hale. His final piece of evidence was a ledger he had secretly kept during his time as Asher's companion. He stood outside the courthouse, wearing the dark, immaculate suit of a senior prosecutor. He watched as Asher was led away in handcuffs, his wife and her family looking on in horror. He felt no triumph, only a quiet, final peace. The ghosts of his past were finally laid to rest. A voice, deeper now, raspy from disuse and years of therapy, spoke his name. He turned. Julian was leaning against a black motorcar, a small smile on his face. His voice therapy had been progressing. For the first time, he spoke back, the words slow and gravelly, but clear. "I'm glad you came." Julian walked over, his eyes crinkling at the sound. "That first time we met, I kicked you. I always regretted it. Now you've kicked Asher Hale harder than I ever could. I suppose we're even." Leo's smile was small, but genuine. Julian took his hand, their fingers lacing together. The two figures walked down the steps of the courthouse, their shadows merging as they disappeared into the bustling, unforgiving, and beautiful chaos of the city.